Battlefield 6 Season 2 launches tomorrow. Today we've got an early look at Contaminated, the first of 2 maps coming in Season 4 to help preview the road ahead in Battlefield 6. This is our first look at Season 2 here on the channel, so while I have new looks at gameplay in the background, I also want to talk about the season at large, the offering, plans, and general reception of what Season 2 brings to the table, because rightfully, players aren't the happiest about what's upcoming. Drop your thoughts, drop a like if you enjoy the video, and make sure to subscribe to stay updated with all things FPS content. I'd love to have it in the community, but for now, let's get into it. So first, what you're seeing is footage of Contaminated, a new map dubbed a large-scale European mountainside, though I'd say this is more bordering on the medium-sized maps for Battlefield 6, just because things like jet capabilities, those don't exist. However, the AH-6 Little Bird does return, and it's a great playground for that, but your main focal points vary in location and cover, slowly being exposed to VL7 gas depending on the mode you're playing, thus requiring a gas mask. The map itself is quite gorgeous to look at. Some areas play better than others for various types of play. All in all, it was an enjoyable map in my little time playing. However, I don't know how much it will connect with a number of different types of players. Vehicle play is limited to tanks, helicopters, and little birds, leaving jets off once again. There's not much close quarters play for those that love that. Unless you're actually on or around the objectives, there's just a lot of open space in between those areas to get to those points. Snipers may have a field day, rifle players may have a field day. It fits nicely with specific niches, but leaves others with areas to be desired. The GRT CPS rifle felt solid, a good choice for those that do enjoy rifle play. Felt balanced, not too insane, but also pretty easy to pick up and get a kill with. The M121A2 machine gun was a bit cumbersome in weight and ADS, but could absolutely pack a punch, and the GRT CPS was a spammy DMR that, in the right hands with the right attachments, will be a bit of a problem. Really fun weapon to use, but Phase 1 starts tomorrow on February 17th with the next phase in a month on the 17th of March, bringing along with it a secondary map of Hagenthal Base, a limited time mode of Nightfall which brings NVGs into play, a new SMG of the CZ3A1, the VZ.61, and the M1031 dirt bike, along with the Gauntlet Nightfall LTM and a new POI in RedSec, making it the first sort of substantial update that we've actually seen in RedSec's offering since the game launched. April 14th kicks off the final Phase 3 of Battlefield 6 Season 2 with Operation Augur, bringing back operations to Battlefield 6, combining Contaminated and Hagenthal Base into one grander experience, but beyond that, you only have a new LTV vehicle, a melee weapon, portal updates, and a bonus path for the Battle Pass to round out your season until at least mid-May. When you look at all of that, especially on a roadmap, and look at the timeline of events, the next 3.5 months here or so, it's just, well, it's not enough. First, starting out with the maps. Maps have been the biggest point of contention on a grand scale, I think, in Battlefield 6's lifespan thus far. In the early days with the beta, it was something kind of written off, or at least that you could kind of like defer to, because it was something that was trying to incorporate a bit of everything for everyone in places like the beta. So you had these smaller experiences. You had Liberation Peak that was the dubbed big map that you could see, but players were like, surely there's bigger maps coming and all that kind of stuff that feeds more into the Battlefield DNA than what we saw in the beta. But it was just one of those things that, yeah, they're trying to market to take away from Call of Duty's audience. And sure, during the beta, you're not going to get much. It's a small sample size of what the game is going to be. But even at launch, even through Season 1, there's not been many maps that really seem to be Battlefield. And listen, I'm more of an infantry guy myself, that it doesn't affect me personally, but like, my word, I feel bad for people that are like pilot mains who want to fly jets and have dogfights or aerial mayhem, because it's almost completely neglected in this game. But another big thing was that of the quantity at which they were trying to throw these maps out here. We ended up seeing 2 maps in Season 1. People are like, that's way too little. We shouldn't be waiting. We saw a delay in Season 2 that made an already long Season 1 even longer. Our last substantial update to Battlefield 6, I would probably say, was in November, and now we're mid-February, and we're finally getting another substantial update with Phase 1 of Season 2 tomorrow. So only 2 maps in a season spanning about 4 months' time is not a way to capitalize on momentum. It was announced well before the game was even revealed in EA earnings reports back in like 2024 that the game would be the biggest live service game to date. However, it doesn't appear to be going any larger than anything we've seen in the Battlefield live service era to begin with, still offering up lackluster amounts of content in regards to the substantial things. When you think about Battlefield, you think about big maps. A part of me may have been able to understand a slightly lower multiplayer offering with Season 1, given it was right after the launch of the game. Like, they did launch Season 1, I think like 2 weeks or 3 weeks after the game's launch, plus they also included a brand new free-to-play mode of RedSec, which was a huge offering by scale of produced content. Not saying anything on the depth or replayability of it, but like, just the absolute size and sheer scale of the assets created for that was massive. So like, yeah, you could maybe argue, okay, that's where a lot of the dev time went. That's where a lot of that sort of was made up for it. Even if it may not be for you, it was a large offering. But now, 4 months after the launch of the game, a dwindling interest in a record-setting game for the franchise, 2 maps in another 3.5 months is not going to be what swings players back into that game. I'm not quite sure what the reasoning is for it, with promises of the biggest live service game yet, very clearly a ton of hype surrounding the game's reveal and eventual launch. Wouldn't have made sense to bear down and just have a post-launch locked and loaded to be something that is impressive all along the way. Personally, I'd hope that with the delay of Season 1, we'd see something pulled from the pipeline down the line and brought into Season 2. Like, whether it be a remake or a remaster of some kind, we see a third map introduced here so that we have at least one map per each phase of what Season 2 would bring along. However, that's not the case. But even on a more fundamental level, I don't quite know why the plan wasn't there for everything all along. I mean, the feedback on quantity and types of maps has been consistent since Battlefield 5 and hasn't really strayed much in terms of quantity and what types of maps people want to see. So I'm not quite sure why that wasn't locked in from the very beginning, like why these weren't built out post-launch alongside the launch offering as well. These games are obviously planned with the content schedule months in advance, but like, I think you should have a little more foresight into what you're offering here for this to maybe plan instead of 4, 5, 6 months out, maybe 7, 8, 9 months out, and you start planning that with larger content offerings and windows of opportunity to do that and to do right by your players. But beyond that, there's also much more that needs to be done outside of just the maps itself, more substantial content itself. For the span of 3, nearly 4 months for a season's completion, I'd say that one of these updates coming with Season 2 is substantial. Phase 1, which is tomorrow, and even that is small by comparison to other offerings we've seen, not even just in the FPS field as a whole, but the Battlefield franchise alone. Outside of weapons and vehicles, there's a total of 11 items offered across 3 months. 6 of those, 7 if you want to count the Battle Pass bonus path, because that's introduced late and only there until the end of the season. 6, or depending again how you interpret it, 7 of these things are only around for about 3 weeks at a time. Nothing that is lasting. 3 limited time modes, some mirrored for multiplayer and RedSec to essentially just be the same modes previewed twice to make the appearance of more content in Phase 1. Half of the Phase 2 offering is limited time modes, again with a mirrored NVG mode in MP and RedSec, and then a grand return of Operations returning as an LTM in Phase 3 also just doesn't make much sense. That in particular, Operations, is a huge one that I don't understand. Operations has been asked for ages and was beloved when it was around in Battlefield 1. Pending no delays, you're going to have this fan favorite return for only 3-ish weeks. You built 2 maps specifically for the Operations to work, and we're only going to see it with these 2 maps for about 3 weeks. That just seems absurd and like a waste of development time in doing so, no? Like, having minimal, admittedly, like I'm not a dev or anything, so I don't know the intricacies of everything, but enough knowledge of game dev, meeting cool people over the years of doing this YouTube stuff, maps like these take way more than 3 weeks of time from start to finish. So why is all that dev time being thrown down the drain for bringing in a fan favorite mode as an LTM to then throw it away immediately? It's almost like an attempt to present the game having more content via LTMs on this roadmap, but by doing so, you inadvertently take what could be permanent content and throw it away. Like, the answer is right there. It was on the table, but then you're just like, nah, we're only gonna make it for 3 weeks. Taking even just that concept of LTMs and not even the 3-week timeline of it, Operations in particular is just a huge win to have returned, but frankly, the players playing Battlefield today are likely those that have real lives and responsibilities. I'd wager that the average player doesn't get to play Operations much when it comes out, even if it's the thing they love the most out of what's previewed for Season 2 here. It just seems like a really stupid choice, personally speaking, to make such a grand return of something so limited. Like, yeah, maybe we'll see it come back in Season 3 or something like that as permanent, but like, why introduce that as a fear of missing out mechanic in Season 2 when it could just be a permanent staple thing and a win for a lot of people in doing so? It's just one of those things that doesn't make a ton of sense to me when it comes to the content offering. To me, it feels like an already low level of content offering by comparison is just filler, using LTMs and lesser value items like a Battle Pass bonus path as a way to showcase more on a roadmap that it just feels disingenuous to me. Beyond that, it's also strange to me that Battlefield Studios are still pretty silent on a lot of gameplay fundamentals. One of the biggest ones that I'm very much so perplexed on is weapon and level progression. That's been a point of contention since launch and has been a big turnoff for many players trying to level weapons and trying to experience everything, where unless you solely are grinding Battlefield, which at this point, if you are, you're probably very much so in the camp of there's not much content left to really explore or to feel excited about, to not make it a monotonous and boring grind. But if you're not like that, you probably don't have all, if even just not even a majority of your weapons fully leveled to play with all of your attachments and things like that. The closest we've seen to anything addressed in regards to changes to how the XP and progression work is in actually Season 2's sort of community update, where they said career and weapon XP earn rates are being increased, but in Battle Royale and Gauntlet. So unless you're in those and don't play MP exclusively, sorry, you're kind of out of luck. So perhaps I'm out of my depth here, perhaps I'm incorrect. However, when I just look at this and I look at what the game launched at, this excitement level, this massive boom for the franchise, the record-setting launch that it had, I was so excited to grind the game out, but to then just not a couple of months later. I just don't have that same level of excitement as I did with a launch, and I don't think that with the competition of other games out there that I'm enjoying personally, aside from this one, that what this offering is enough to really bring me back to want to grind the game. And I'm sure a lot of people also feel that same way. Battlefield attempted to go for that throne, but just didn't keep up with the punches necessary to make it all the way there. Ultimately, I think this update tomorrow will be fun, but like, for me, for like a week. I, like many others, clearly by the trend of the Steam charts, have had a fun time with the game. Like, I really do enjoy Battlefield 6 fundamentally and at its core, but there's just not enough to wow me into playing it consistently and to grind it out as a daily driver for the last 4 months and going into the future here at this, playing beyond these little drip feeds at a time. It's kind of ironic because in an attempt to, with all these things like LTMs, to get you to come back week over week, it pushes me away almost, because it doesn't feel like the player's time is being respected, or it's something that doesn't feel as valuable as to want to go for that. Like a battle pass bonus path, honestly, I don't care about, man. It's a lot of stuff that is just minimal in cosmetics, and when on multiple occasions that's the highlight and premier item of the update, it just isn't something that really like grabs me back into it. I'll be playing Contaminated for a bit, but past a week or so, I'm sure that it will lose much of its novelty, and then we'll just have to wait again until next month for the next map and other content that is coming and repeat that cycle over again. But those down periods between updates, that's where I think Battlefield Studios needs to be focusing on that stuff. They need to focus on making content that's permanent and enjoyable, and instead of the little gotcha style hooks or the fear of missing out LTMs, you get stuff that is actually permanent and resonates with players. Also, I'm hoping that maybe going into Season 3 and beyond, I'm hoping that that's enough time for, say, a shift in a long-term developmental cycle for Battlefield 6, that maybe we start to see those 3 to 4 maps. I'm not holding my breath, but I mean, I would definitely love to see that happen, because admittedly, when you take a look at this kind of stuff and how development works, a lot of games usually plan their live seasons 1 and 2 in conjunction with that pre-launch sort of development cycle there. That's the stuff that's usually the stuff that's already started before the post-launch feedback comes in. So when we see these sort of Season 1 updates being, oh, we need more maps, like that kind of stuff, usually it's not going to be reflected in the following season, but perhaps the season after that is when you can start to see that turnaround. So like, fingers crossed, but again, I'm not holding my breath on that one. I would love to be proven wrong on it and for this game to flourish and thrive and to offer a ton of awesome content to players, but like, we don't have anything more than just sheer hopium at this point. So anyways, that's Season 2 here and what we have on deck as of tomorrow. Not entirely sure the content coverage here that I'll be continuing with Battlefield 6 Season 2, because basically what we can talk about and what is coming, we already just summed up in this video, and that was a brief bit of that at the very beginning of this video. So let me know your thoughts down below. Drop a like if you guys enjoyed the video, and make sure to subscribe for more FPS content I'd love to have in the community. For now, though, thanks so much for watching. Mine has been Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care, and peace.